My sister begged me to carry her baby, then walked away at 7 months saying she needed to focus on herself. I had the baby alone and gave her my last name. My older sister Willa couldn't have kids. She found out when she was 28 and it destroyed her. She and her husband Glenn tried everything for years, and none of it worked. When Willa turned 32, she sat me down at her kitchen table and asked me if I would carry a baby for them. She said I was the only person she trusted. She said it would mean everything to her. She said she'd cover all the medical costs and that Glenn was on board and that they'd already talked to a doctor about how it would work. The baby would be theirs biologically. They'd use their egg and his sperm, and I'd just be the one carrying it. I was 27 and single and healthy, and I loved my sister more than anyone, so I said yes. I didn't even think about it for more than a day. My mom Alma cried when we told her. She said it was the most selfless thing she'd ever heard, and that she was proud of both of us. The process took a while. 2 rounds didn't take. The 3rd one did. When the test came back positive, Willa screamed so loud, Glenn came running in from the garage thinking something was wrong. The first few months were fine. Willa came to every appointment. She'd hold my hand during the ultrasounds and cry every time she heard the heartbeat. Glenn was there for most of them too. He'd bring me food after and check in on me during the week. I was sick for almost the entire first trimester, and Willa stayed at my apartment twice to take care of me. It felt like we were doing something real and important together. Then around month 4, Willa stopped coming to appointments. She said work was busy. She said she'd make the next one. She didn't. Glenn started coming alone, and he was quiet in a way that made me nervous. I asked him if everything was okay, and he said things at home were complicated. I asked Willa directly, and she told me to stop worrying, and that she and Glenn just needed space. By month 5, Willa told me she and Glenn were separating. She said it had nothing to do with the baby, and everything to do with them not being able to stand each other anymore. She said the plan was still the same. They were still going to raise the baby together even if they weren't together. She said lots of people do it. I believed her because I had to. At 6 months, Willa filed for divorce. Glenn moved out of the house and into an apartment across town. He stopped coming to appointments. He stopped texting me. Willa came to one more ultrasound and spent the entire time on her phone. When the doctor told us the baby was a girl, Willa looked up from her screen and said, "Cool, that was it, cool." I went home that night and sat on my bathroom floor and just stared at the wall. I was 6 months pregnant with a baby that was starting to feel like nobody wanted. At 7 months, Willa called me. She told me she'd been doing a lot of thinking and that she wasn't sure she was in a place to be a mom right now. She said the divorce was draining her and that she needed time to focus on herself. I asked her what that meant for the baby. She said she thought maybe I could keep her for a while until things settled down. I asked her what a while meant. She said she didn't know. I called Glenn. He didn't pick up. I called him again the next day and he answered and told me he wasn't in a position to take a baby either. He said the divorce was costing him everything and that he could barely afford his apartment. He said he figured Willa would handle it. I told him Willa just told me she wasn't handling it. He went quiet and then said he was sorry and that this wasn't what he planned. I called my mom. Alma told me to give Willa time and that she was just overwhelmed. I told her Willa didn't sound overwhelmed. She sounded done. Alma said I was being harsh and that my sister was going through the hardest time of her life. I told her I was 7 months pregnant with a baby I agreed to carry as a favor, and both of the people who asked me to do it had just walked away. Alma said she'd talk to Willa. She didn't, or if she did, it didn't change anything. I had the baby alone. My friend Josie drove me to the hospital and stayed the whole time. Willa didn't come. Glenn didn't come. Alma came the next day and held the baby for 10 minutes, and then asked me if I'd talk to Willa about next steps. I told her there were no next steps. I told her the baby was mine. Alma looked at me like I had said something terrible. She said that baby was Willa's and that I couldn't just decide to keep her. I told her Willa decided to leave her and that I was the one who showed up. Alma called Willa right there in the hospital room. Willa told Alma she needed more time. That's all she ever said. More time, more time. I took the baby home to my apartment and I named her B. I set up a crib in my bedroom. Josie helped me with the first 2 weeks. I did everything else on my own. A lawyer helped me sort out the paperwork, and because neither Willa nor Glenn contested anything, the process moved faster than I expected. They both signed off. That was 11 months ago. Then I found her standing in front of my house one day. She was standing on my front step holding a wrapped present with silver paper and a white bow. I saw her through the peephole before I opened the door. Her hair was different, shorter. She looked healthy in a way I hadn't seen in years. Her face had color. She wasn't wearing the same tired expression she'd had all through the pregnancy. She smiled when I opened the door. I didn't smile back. She asked if she could come in to talk. I started to close the door. Then B made a noise from her playpen in the living room. Just a little fussy sound because she was getting tired. Willa's whole face changed. It crumpled like someone had punched her. She looked past me trying to see inside. I stepped into the doorway and blocked her view. I told her she had 5 minutes. She started talking about therapy. 8 months of it. Twice a week at first, and then once a week. She got a job as an office manager at a dental practice. She moved into her own apartment after staying with a friend for a while after the divorce. She said the words fast, like she'd practiced them. She said she was drowning before. She said she made terrible choices. She said she's different now. She wants to be part of B's life. I felt my hands shake, so I crossed my arms. I told her she doesn't get to walk away for almost a year and then decide she's ready when it's convenient. I told her B is my daughter now, legally, and in every way that matters. Willa started crying. She said she knows. She said she's not trying to take B away. She just wants to know her. I told her she should have thought about that before she disappeared. She asked if she could at least see her, just for a minute. I said no. She needed to leave. She put the present down on the step and walked back to her car. I watched her drive away. Then, I picked up the present and threw it in the trash. I called Josie the second I closed the door. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold my my phone. She showed up 40 minutes later with Chinese food and a bottle of wine. B was on her activity mat kicking at the hanging toys. Josie sat on the floor next to her and looked up at me. She asked what happened. I told her everything Willa said. The therapy, the job, the apartment, how healthy she looked, how she cried. Josie listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked what I was actually afraid of. She said the adoption is legal and final. Willa and Glenn both signed off. I have full custody. So what am I afraid of? I sat down on the couch. I realized I was scared Willa would mess up the life we built. Me and B. Our routine. The way B reaches for me when she's tired. The way she laughs when I make faces at her. I was scared that Willa's biological connection would somehow matter more than 11 months of me being the only parent B has ever known. Josie squeezed my hand. She said B knows who her mom is. I wanted to believe her. 3 days later, my phone buzzed during B's afternoon nap. A text from Willa asking how B was doing. I deleted it without responding. The next day, another text with a photo of a little pink dress. She said she saw it and thought of B. I deleted that one too. The texts kept coming. Every few days. Sometimes every day. Updates about her therapy. Questions about B's sleep schedule. Requests to see her. Just once. Just for an hour. Please. My phone started making me anxious. Every buzz made my stomach tight. 2 weeks after the first doorstep visit, I heard knocking while I was feeding B lunch. Willa again. I didn't open the door. She knocked harder. Called my name. B started crying because the knocking scared her. I picked her up and said through the wood that she needed to stop. If she showed up again, I would get a restraining order. She came back 4 days later. Same thing. I didn't answer, just stood in the hallway holding B until she left. My mom called on a Tuesday morning. Alma didn't say hello. She just started talking about how Willa came to her house crying. She said, Willa is trying so hard, and I won't even let her see B. I felt something hot rise up in my chest. I reminded Mom that Willa wasn't there when I gave birth alone. She wasn't there for the 3 a.m. feedings when I was so tired I could barely stand. She wasn't there for B's first smile or when she rolled over for the first time or any of the million small moments that make up being a parent. Willa made her choice when she walked away. Alma said I was being cruel. She said family forgives each other. She said I was keeping B from her real mother. I hung up on her. I blocked her number. I sat on the couch and cried while B played with her blocks on the floor. Glenn called me 2 weeks later. We met at a cafe downtown. Josie watched B. He told me he never wanted kids. The surrogacy was all Willa's idea. He went along with it because he loved her and thought it would save their marriage. When everything fell apart, he was relieved I took over. He signed the papers and he meant it. But he thinks Willa genuinely regrets abandoning the baby. I asked if that was supposed to make me feel better. He said no. He just wanted me to know. I left my coffee on the table and walked out. The letter came on a Thursday. Official law office letterhead. I opened it standing in my kitchen while B napped. My hands started shaking before I finished the first paragraph. Willa was requesting supervised visitation with B. The letter cited her biological connection, her improved mental health, her stable job, and living situation. It was formal and cold, and it made everything real in a way her texts and doorstep visits didn't. I called Constance, the lawyer who helped me with the adoption. She could meet the next day. Constance's office was downtown in an old building with creaky floors. She read the letter slowly, then set it down and folded her hands. She said my adoption is legally solid, but family courts sometimes allow biological parents limited contact if they can prove stability, and it serves the child's best interest. She said if this goes to court, and I've refused any contact, it might not look good. She recommended one supervised visit at a family resource center. I hated everything about this advice, but I said yes. The family resource center was a bright building with toys everywhere and artwork on the walls. A counselor named Maria met us in the lobby. She had kind eyes and a clipboard. She led us to a room with a playmat and shelves of books and stuffed animals. Willa was already there. She stood up when we walked in. She looked nervous. She smiled at B, but B turned her face into my shoulder. Maria sat in a chair in the corner with her clipboard. I sat on the floor with B in my lap. Willa sat across from us. She tried to hand B a stuffed rabbit. B didn't take it. Willa started talking in this high voice that didn't sound like her. After a few minutes, she reached out to hold her. I passed B over even though everything in me wanted to hold on. B immediately started crying. Real crying. She reached her arms out to me. Willa tried to comfort her, but B cried harder. I took her back. She stopped the second she was in my arms. Willa's eyes filled with tears. She said she was sorry. For the first time since this whole thing started, she actually apologized. She said she knows she destroyed everything, but she wants to try. Maria made notes on her clipboard. The visit lasted 30 minutes. That night, I found Willa's Instagram. Pictures of therapy appointments, work events, her apartment clean and bright, and pictures of her with a guy named Nathan. Together, 4 months. She looked happy in every single picture. I felt something twist in my chest. She got to fix her life while I was alone and exhausted with a newborn, getting up 3 times a night and crying in the shower. She got to be happy. Josie called 20 minutes later like she had some kind of radar. I told her about the Instagram, about Nathan. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, I have B. Willa has Instagram posts. Those aren't the same thing. She said B is real and mine and worth more than any perfect looking life. 2 weeks later, Constance called and asked me to come in that afternoon. Her voice sounded different, tighter. She was waiting with Rosemary Barton, her partner who handles custody cases. Willa's lawyer had filed a formal petition for shared custody. Not visits, not supervised time. Shared custody with alternating weekends and holidays. I stared at the words until they blurred. Rosemary talked about building a case, showing I was B's primary psychological parent, that disrupting her routine would harm her. All I could think was Willa wanted to take B overnight and I couldn't breathe. 3 days later, Alma called about dinner on Sunday. I almost said no, but she kept talking about how she missed B. When I pulled up, I saw Willa's car in the driveway driveway. I sat there for a full minute staring at it. Mom had set me up. I grabbed the diaper bag and carried B inside. Willa was at the kitchen table. Alma was at the stove stirring something. She turned around and smiled like this was normal. She started talking about family and how sisters shouldn't fight in court. I put B in her high chair and asked if she really thought ambushing me would fix anything. Alma said she wasn't ambushing anyone. She was trying to help. I told her she wasn't there when I gave birth. Wasn't there at 3 a.m. with a screaming baby. Wasn't there when I was so tired I couldn't see straight. Now she wanted to play peacemaker like none of that mattered. Alma's face went red. She said that wasn't fair. I said her best was choosing Willa's feelings over everything I went through. Willa sat there quiet, looking down at her hands. I grabbed B and the diaper bag and drove home shaking so hard I had to pull over twice. The next morning, Glenn texted that Willa's lawyer wanted him to support her petition. He told them no. He signed away his rights and meant it. Part of me felt relieved, but he got to opt out while I was going to court fighting to keep the baby he helped create. The court ordered mediation. Rosemary said it was standard before custody hearings. The mediator was Theo Flynn. Older, maybe 60, gray hair, calm voice. He explained how mediation worked, how we'd each get a chance to talk. Then he asked Willa to explain what she wanted. She talked about therapy, healing, being ready to be a mother now. She said she knew she made mistakes, but she was different. B deserved to know her biological mother. Then he looked at me. I said I'd been B's mother since birth. I carried her, gave birth alone, named her, got up with her every single night. Willa walked away when things got hard and now wanted to come back because her timing was better. That wasn't how being a parent worked. You didn't get to leave and come back when it was convenient. Between sessions, I called Rosemary about getting Willa's medical records. A week later, she called back. Willa had been hospitalized twice. Once during her 7th month of pregnancy. Once right after the divorce. Both times for severe anxiety and depression. Barely functional. Her therapist documented concerns about her ability to care for herself, let alone a baby. I read through the records after putting B to bed. Page after page of doctor's notes. Medication lists. I felt something twist in my chest. Not anger this time. Something else. Willa really had been drowning. It didn't change what she did, but it made her more human. I hated that. The court approved trial visitation. 3 hours every Saturday at the Family Resource Center supervised by a counselor. The first Saturday was awkward. B crying. Willa trying too hard. We kept going every Saturday for a month. B started crying before we even got there. She'd cling to me walking in. During visits, she wouldn't warm up to Willa. Wouldn't play with the toys. The counselor noted B was showing distress at transitions. Rosemary said it was important evidence. But watching my daughter cry every Saturday made me feel sick. After the 4th visit, I asked Willa to meet me at a park. Just us. No lawyers. No mediators. She said yes. We met on a Tuesday afternoon. Josie watched B. Willa was sitting on a bench when I got there. I sat down and didn't waste time. I told her she needed to hear the full truth about what her leaving did to me. Going into labor scared. Josie holding my hand because no one else came. The first 2 weeks crying while trying to figure out breastfeeding. Falling in love with B while grieving the sister who promised to be there. Who said this would be something we did together. I said her mental health crisis didn't erase what happened. She asked me to do something huge and then disappeared. Willa started crying. Real crying. She said she was so scared of being a bad mother that watching me with B made her realize how much she missed. She said maybe she didn't deserve to be involved. I felt something unexpected. Not anger, empathy. It didn't fix anything, but it made me understand a little. I told her being scared didn't make her a bad person, but it didn't mean she got to disrupt B's stability whenever she felt ready. B's needs came first, not Willa's timeline. Over the next 2 weeks, we met 3 more times with Theo. Something shifted. We stopped fighting and started actually talking. Willa agreed to supervised visits without pushing for overnight stays until B was older. I agreed to increase visits to twice a week, 2 hours each. I also agreed to let Willa come to some pediatrician appointments and milestones. We both agreed to family therapy. It wasn't perfect, but it was something we could both live with. The formal agreement was signed 3 weeks later. Full custody to me. Supervised visitation twice a week. If Willa missed visits or showed instability, they would stop. I signed and felt relief and sadness together. This was what our family became. Lawyers and mediators and formal agreements. I drove home and sat in the nursery watching B sleep. I knew I'd be watching Willa carefully. The agreement was just paper. She'd already left once. The first official visit was at Riverside Park. I got there early and pushed B in the swings. Willa showed up on time carrying a cooler bag. She pulled out cut strawberries and said she remembered me mentioning B liked them. Something shifted in my chest. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was something. She asked real questions. Whether B had eaten lunch, what her nap schedule was, whether she still hated the blender. She didn't try to force anything. She let B come to her. After 20 minutes, B crawled over and grabbed at the strawberries. Willa held out a piece. B took it, and Willa laughed. A real laugh. This was the first time she'd paid attention to what B needed instead of what she wanted to give. I drove to Alma's house on Sunday morning while Josie watched B. I didn't call ahead. Mom answered in her bathrobe and looked surprised. We sat at the kitchen table. I told her when she kept pushing me to give Willa chances, she made me feel like the problem. Like I was being selfish for protecting my daughter. I told her I needed my mother when I was pregnant and scared, and she chose Willa instead. Alma's eyes filled up. She reached across the table, but I pulled my hands back. I wasn't done. I told her she could love both of of us, but she couldn't ask me to pretend everything was fine. Mom started crying for real. She said she was trying to keep everyone together, that she was scared of losing both her daughters, that she handled it wrong and she was sorry. She should have been there for me more. I felt some of the anger loosen, just a little. I told her I wanted to rebuild things, but it had to be different. My relationship with Willow was mine to manage, and she needed to respect that. Mom nodded and wiped her face. She asked to see B soon. I said, yes. That night I sat in the nursery rocker in the dark. I thought about everything that happened. How I went from a single 27-year-old to a mom at 28. I never planned this, but I couldn't imagine life without B now. She changed everything, made me stronger than I knew I could be. The situation with Willa would probably always be complicated, but I was learning that I could protect B and still leave room for Willa to try. 6 months went by. Willa came to every visit, never missed one, never showed up late. She learned B's favorite songs and which toys made her laugh and how to hold her when she got fussy. B started smiling when Willa walked into the park, started reaching for her sometimes. I was still the one B called for when she fell down or got scared. Still mama in every way that counted. But watching them together, I could see that maybe having some connection to Willa would be good for B as she got older. Our family was messy and broken and held together with legal agreements and careful boundaries. But we were making it work, one visit at a time, one day at a time. And I was learning that being B's mom meant making hard choices, meant putting her needs first even when my own hurt hadn't completely healed, meant figuring out how to protect her while giving her the chance to know where she came from. It wasn't perfect. It probably never would be, but it was truly ours.